Bible in a Year Live Chronological Project, Week 36, Day 2, Good News Translation. Rebuilding the Wall of Jerusalem. This is how the city wall was rebuilt. The high priest, Eliashib, and his fellow priests rebuilt the sheep gate, dedicated it, and put the gates in place. They dedicated the wall as far as the Tower of the 100 and the Tower of Hananel. The men of Jericho built the next section. Zachar, son of Imri, built the next section. The clan of Hassenaah built the fish gate. They put the beams and the gates into place, and put in the bolts and bars for locking the gate. Merimoth, the son of Uriah and grandson of Hakkoz, built the next section. Meshulam, the son of Berechiah and grandson of Meshezabel, built the next section. Zadok, son of Baana, built the next section. The men of Tekoa built the next section, but the leading men of the town refused to do the manual labor assigned them by the supervisors. Joiada, son of Paseah, and Meshulam, son of Besodiah, rebuilt Jeshaniah gate. They put the beams and the gates in place, and put the bolts and bars for locking the gate. Melatiah from Gibeon, Jadon from Meronoth, and the men of Gibeon and Mizpah built the next section, as far as the residence of the governor of west of Euphrates. Uzziel, son of Haraiah, a goldsmith, built the next section. Hananiah, a maker of perfumes, built the next section, as far as Broad Wall. Rephaiah, son of Hur, ruler of half of the Jerusalem district, built the next section. Jedaiah, son of Harumaph, built the next section, which was near his own house. Hattush, son of Hashabneiah, built the next section. Malchijah, son of Harim, and Hashub, son of Pahath, Moab built both the next section and the Tower of the Ovens. Shallum, son of Halohesh, ruler of the other half of the Jerusalem district, built the next section. His daughters helped with the work. Hanun and the inhabitants of the city of Zanoah rebuilt the valley gate. They put the gates in place, put in the bolts and the bars for locking the gate, and repaired the wall for 1,500 feet, as far as the rubbish gate. Malchijah, son of Rechab, ruler of the Meth Hakerem district, rebuilt rubbish gates. He put the gates in place, and put in the bolts and the bars for locking the gate. Shallum, son of Kolhoseh, ruler of the Mizpah district, rebuilt the fountain gate. He covered the gateway, put the gates in place, and put in the bolts and the bars. At the pool of Shelah, he built the wall next to the royal garden, as far as the stairs leading down from David's city. Nehemiah, son of Azbuk, ruler of half of the Beth Zur district, built the next section, as far as David's tomb, the pool, and the barracks. Levites who worked on the wall. The following Levites rebuilt the next several sections of the wall. Rehum, son of Bani, built the next section. Hashabiah, ruler of half of the Keilah district, built the next section on behalf of his district. Bavai, son of Hanadad, ruler of the other half of the Keilah district, built the next section. Ezer, son of Jeshua, ruler of Mizpah, built the next section in front of the armory, as far as the place where the wall turns. Baruch, son of Zabai, built the next section, as far as the entrance to the house of the high priest Eliashib. Merimoth, the son of Uriah and grandson of Hakkoz, built the next section, up to the far end of Eliashib's house. Priests who worked on the wall. The following priests rebuilt the next several sections of the wall. Priests from the area around Jerusalem built the next section. Benjamin and Hashub built the next section, which was in front of their houses. Azariah, the son of Maaseiah and grandson of Ananiah, built the next section, which was in front of his house. Benui, son of Hanadad, built the next section, from Azariah's house to the corner of the wall. Palal, son of Uzai, built the next section, beginning at the corner of the wall and the tower of the upper palace near the court of the guard. Pedaiah, son of Parosh, built the next section, to a point on the east near the water gate and the tower guarding the temple. This was near that part of the city called Ophel, where the temple workers lived. Other builders. The men of Tekoa built the next section, their second one from a point opposite the large tower guarding the temple as far as the wall near Ophel. A group of priests built the next section, going north from the horse gate, each one building in front of his own house. Zadok, son of Immer, built the next section, which was in front of his house. Shemaiah, son of Shechaniah, keeper of the east gate, built the next section. Hananiah, son of Shelemiah, and Hanun, the sixth son of Zalaph, built the next section, their second one. Meshulam, son of Berechiah, built the next section, which was in front of his house. Malchijah, a goldsmith, built the next section as far as the building used by the temple workers and the merchants, which was by the Mifkad gate to the temple, near the room on top of the northeast corner of the wall. The goldsmiths and the merchants built the last section from the room at the corner as far as the sheep gate. Nehemiah overcomes opposition to his work. When Sanballat heard that we Jews had begun rebuilding the wall, he became furious and began to ridicule us. In front of his companions and the Samaritan troops, he said, "What do these miserable Jews think they're doing? Do they intend to rebuild the city? Do they think that by offering sacrifices they can finish the work in one day? Can they make building stones out of heaps of burnt rubble?" Tobiah was standing there beside him, and he added, "What kind of wall could they ever build? Even a fox could knock it down." I prayed, "Hear how they make fun of us, O God. Let their ridicule fall on their own heads. Let them be robbed of everything they have, and let them be taken as prisoners to a foreign land. Don't forgive the evil they do, and don't forget their sins, for they have insulted us who are building." So we went on rebuilding the wall, and soon it was half its full height, because the people were eager to work. Sanballat, Tobiah, and the people of Arabia, Ammon, and Ashdod heard that we were making progress in rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem, and that the gaps in the wall were being closed, and they became very angry. So they all plotted together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. But we prayed to our God, and kept men on guard against them day and night. The people of Judah had a song they sang. "We grow weak carrying burdens. There's so much rubble to take away. How can we build the wall today?" Our enemies thought we would not see them or know what was happening until they were already upon us, killing us and putting an end to our work. But time after time, Jews who were living among our enemies came to warn us of the plans our enemies were making against us. So I armed the people with swords, spears, and bows, and stationed them by clans behind the wall, wherever it was still unfinished. I saw that the people were worried. So I said to them and to their leaders and officials, "Don't be afraid of our enemies. Remember how great and terrifying the Lord is, and fight for your relatives, your children, your wives, and your homes." Our enemies heard that we had found out what they were plotting, and they realized that God had defeated their plans. Then all of us went back to rebuilding the wall. From then on, half of my men worked and half stood guard, wearing coats of armor and armed with spears, shields, and bows. And our leaders gave their full support to the people who were rebuilding the wall. Then those who carried building materials worked with one hand and kept a weapon in the other. And everyone who was building kept a sword strapped to their waist. The man who was to sound the alarm on the bugle stayed with me. I told the people and their officials and leaders, "The work is spread out over such a distance that we are widely separated from one another on the wall. If you hear the bugle, gather around. Our God will fight for us." So every day, from dawn until the stars came out at night, half of us worked on the wall, while the other half stood guard with spears. During this time, I told the men in charge that they and all their helpers had to stay in Jerusalem at night, so that we could guard the city at night as well as work in the daytime. I didn't take off my clothes even at night, neither did any of my companions, nor my servants, nor my bodyguards, and we all kept our weapons at hand. Oppression of the poor. Sometime later, many of the people, both men and women, began to complain against the other Jews. Some said, "We have large families. We need grain to keep us alive." Others said, "We have had to mortgage our fields and vineyards and houses to get enough grain to keep us from starving." Still others said, "We had to borrow money to pay the royal tax on our fields and vineyards. We are of the same race as the other Jews. Aren't our children just as good as theirs? But we have to make slaves of our children. Some of our daughters have already been sold as slaves. We are helpless because our fields and vineyards have been taken away from us." When I heard these complaints, I grew angry and decided to act. I denounced the leaders and officials of the people and told them, "You are oppressing your own relatives." I called a public assembly to deal with the problem and said, "As far as we have been able, we have been buying back our Jewish relatives who had to sell themselves to foreigners. Now you are forcing your own relatives to sell themselves to you, their own people." The leaders were silent and could not find nothing to say. Then I said, "What you are doing is wrong. You ought to obey God and do what's right. Then you would not give our enemies, the Gentiles, any reason to ridicule us. I have let the people borrow money and grain from me, and so have my companions and those who work for me. Now let's give up all our claims to repayment. Cancel all the debts they owe you, money or grain or wine or olive oil, and give them back their fields, vineyards, olive groves, and houses right now." The leaders replied, "We'll do as you say. We'll give the property back and not try to collect the debts." I called in the priests and made the leaders swear in front of them to keep the promise they had just made. Then I took off the sash I was wearing around my waist and shook it out. "This is how God will shake any of you who don't keep your promise," I said. "God will take away your houses and everything you own, and will leave you with nothing." Everyone who was present said, "Amen," and praised the Lord, and the leaders kept their promise. Nehemiah's unselfishness. During all the 12 years that I was governor of the land of Judah, from the 20th year that Artaxerxes was emperor until his 32nd year, neither my relatives nor I ate the food I was entitled to have as governor. Every governor who had been in office before me had been a burden to the people and had demanded 40 silver coins a day for food and wine. Even their servants had oppressed the people. But I acted differently because I honored God. I put all my energy into rebuilding the wall and did not acquire any property. Everyone who worked for me joined in the rebuilding. I regularly fed at my table 150 of the Jewish people and their leaders, besides all the people who came to me from the surrounding nations. Every day I served 1 beef, 6 of the best sheep, and many chickens, and every 10 days I provided a fresh supply of wine. But I knew what heavy burdens the people had to bear, and so I did not claim the allowance that the governor is entitled to. I pray you, O God, remember to my credit everything that I have done for this people. Plots against Nehemiah. Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, and the rest of our enemies heard that we had finished building the wall, and that there were no gaps left in it, although we still had not set up the gates in the gateways. So Sanballat and Geshem sent me a message, suggesting that I meet with them in one of the villages in the plain of Ono. This was a trick of theirs to try to harm me. I sent messengers to say to them, "I am doing important work and can't go down there. I am not going to let the work stop just to go and see you." They sent me the same message 4 times, and each time I sent them the same reply. Then Sanballat sent one of his servants to me with a 5th message, this one in the form of an unsealed letter. It read, "Geshem tells me that a rumor is going around among the neighboring peoples that you and the Jewish people intend to revolt, and that this is why you are rebuilding the wall. He also says you plan to make yourself king, and that you have arranged for some prophets to proclaim in Jerusalem that you are the king of Judah. His Majesty is certain to hear about this, so I suggest that you and I meet to talk the situation over." I sent a reply to him, "Nothing of what you are saying is true. You have made it all up yourselves. They were trying to frighten us into stopping work." I prayed, But now, God, make me strong. About this time I went to visit Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah, and grandson of Mehetabel, who was unable to leave his house. He said to me, You and I must go and hide together in the holy place of the temple, and lock the doors, because they are coming to kill you. Any night now they will come to kill you. I answered, I am not the kind of person that runs and hides. Do you think I would try to save my life by hiding in the temple? I won't do it. When I thought it over, I realized that God had not spoken to Shemaiah, but that Tobiah and Sanballat had bribed him to give me this warning. They hired him to frighten me into sinning, so that they could ruin my reputation and humiliate me. I prayed, O God, remember what Tobiah and Sanballat have done and punish them. Remember that woman Noadiah and all the other prophets who tried to frighten me. The conclusion of the work. After 52 days of work, the entire wall was finished on the 25th day of the month of Elul. When our enemies in the surrounding nations heard this, they realized that they had lost face, since everyone knew that the work had been done with God's help. During all this time, the Jewish leaders had been in correspondence with Tobiah. Many people in Judah were on his side, and because of his Jewish father-in-law, Shechaniah, son of Ara. In addition, his son Jehohanan had married the daughter of Meshullam, son of Berechiah. People would talk in front of me about all the good deeds Tobiah had done, and would tell him everything I said, and he kept sending me letters to try to frighten me. And now the wall had been rebuilt, the gates had all been put in place, and the temple guards, the members of the sacred choir, and the other Levites had been assigned their work. I put 2 men in charge of governing the city of Jerusalem, my brother Hanani and Hananiah, commanding officer of the fortress. Hananiah was a reliable and God-fearing man without equal. I told them not to have the gates of Jerusalem opened in the morning until well after sunrise, and to have them closed and barred before the guards went off duty at sunset. I also told them to appoint guards from among the people who lived in Jerusalem, and to assign some of them to specific posts and others to patrol the area around their own houses.